The family of Nabeeha Al-Qadriya, who was killed by her abductors after her parents failed to meet the deadline given by her abductors for ransom to be paid, has confirmed the release of her 4 sisters. Nabeeha, her sisters and their father were abducted on January 2nd from their home at Zuma 1 on the outskirts of Wari town in Abuja. Tragically, an uncle of the deceased, Abdul Fatai, who led a potential rescue mission, was killed by the bandits. Although Mr. Al-Qadriya was later released to go source for ransom, his daughter Nabeeha was killed after the family could not raise the ransom within the specified time. The family has thanked Nigerians for their support, including a crowd fundraising for ransom. Meanwhile, the police operatives have successfully rescued the victims around Kajuru Forest in Kaduna State. Also released are 7 abducted victims from Sangwari Layout. Arise News has this exclusive with Mr. Al-Qadriya.
It was on the 2nd of January. I think I came in around about 7 o'clock from town, and moving straight to observe my evening prayer, that is the Maghrib prayer. And thereafter, I think I sat down at the sitting room there just for me to relax. Then thereafter, I observed my Isha prayer. After observing the Isha prayer, I was not feeling too okay for me to take my dinner, so I was feeling very weak that day. I now asked my daughter to prepare a small pap for me. So thereafter, I took the pap. I couldn't even take it. So I went in straight to the bedroom. I was just relaxing, pressing my phone. I was telling my wife, I'm not strong. I don't know what is happening. Then my mood is not okay. So after some time, I dozed off. So the next thing I heard around, the noise was just coming. I said, who is banging the gates? And I asked them, because my children were in their various rooms. I was like, who is banging the gates? Who is knocking? This one is not knocking, they are banging it. They said, they don't know. I stood up. And I came out. It's an uncompleted building anyway. I just fixed about 3 rooms there just for us to move in. We're moving not up to 2 months now. And so I came out. I went straight to the sitting room, the main sitting room of which we're still working on, to check. I peeped from the window and I sight one man standing by the main gate. It was from there I noticed this armed robbers then. So I haven't sight then. I've already made up my mind as well. If they have come, there's no problem. And I notified my wife that it's like they're armed robbers, so it's like they have come. So I went straight into my bedroom. My children too have already locked up their rooms, in their various rooms. I went in straight to my room, switched off the lights. My wife rushed to the bedroom, we switched off the lights. I picked my phone, trying to see who I call, neighbors around. My memory was like, who do I call? I was confused. But along the line, when I reorganized myself, I was able to pick myself up and say, let me call my brother. And I called my brother. And I said, Abdul Fatai, where are you? I said, there's problem. We are being attacked now. Armed robbers, thief, like that. Within 15 minutes, I called back. He said, bros, I'm close to you. I said, okay. So I was a bit relaxed. The guys have already sighted them by the window. They've pulled the window, they've break the glass. I knew they were in full force. There's nothing I could do that for me to surrender myself to them. And I asked, I said, Kai, what is it that you need? Whatever you need, come in. I came out, opened the door. One got me and asked me, Inagudi. I look at him, I don't have money. But if you see anything here that is good for you, pack it at the Pideshi. He looked at me. He searched everywhere. I noticed they were looking for money, checking some things like that, of which they picked the things that they thought probably they could go with. I was just looking at him. Coincidentally, I think there was one rope that I used inside the compound for at the back there. He picked the rope from my room. The next thing I saw him coming out was to tie me with that rope. I knew, well, I'm the suspect. I gave up. I said, okay, let's go. He now marched me out from my room to the balcony in my room, and then my children too. They've already break the door. They've used this long jigger in my compound. They pick the jigger from my compound. They break the door. They've get their entrance to my children's room, march them out like that. I saw my children, myself. I said, okay, let's go. Their intention was to lead us out of that community to the main road that goes to Veritas. So I was having the confidence that at least between that time, is that the police will come or the other security people will come that will make them to leave us and run away. When I noticed my brother was driving in, I was happy. He was the one that actually lead the police to my community. So when I sighted this guy, I said, Kai, this guy, as at that time, they had already positioned themselves again. When they said that they were coming, they didn't know who was coming, but they saw the police light on. So they knew quite all right, these guys have come for them. So on seeing that, I said, Kai, there's nothing I could do. And I tell my children, I say, relax yourself. And I said, all of us should lie down. And I tell my children, I say, just go down. Myself too, I hide myself on the floor. It was from then, 3 of them up went to, there's a building not far from the main road. It's fenced. There's a gate there. They went to that building, but 3 of them were trying to gain entrance to that building. I was seeing them using harrow and all sorts of things to break the security lights so that people will not see them from a distance. So they break all the bulbs outside, the security lights outside, trying to climb the gates inside. So it was then they started to exchange bullets. And I saw my brother that he wanted to drive further. So he didn't know that they were close to that house. So the next thing he did was for him to reverse back, which the reverse that he did, I believe they must have shot him. So the police vehicle too got stopped. So his reverse could not go back. So they were all exchanging with themselves. So after a few minutes, both of them stopped. I think the police stopped. They can't advance further. And I said, Kai, they must have injured my brother or injured the police. For the police vehicle not to advance further, meaning that they cannot stand these guys. So thereafter they've been able to recoup themselves and get their strength that they have injured these people. You know, also to stand up, go back to the village, take another route to get out of that place. The ransom, how came about the ransom?
Particularly the demands. Have they made any demands when they contacted you?
I was at their camp when all this ransom of a thing was coming up. You know, that night that we went through the bush, it took us like 8 hours, 30 minutes with my children. I was not wearing any slippers. I was wearing knicker, my sports wear with t-shirt like this. So, as at the time we were going inside that bush, one of them tried to make a friend. I was trying to make friends with one of them. So, Aboki, Zona Dalla. That one was not trying to, in the sense, I speak Yoruba. So, I was just trying to communicate to me in Yoruba. I was like, come now. What do you need? What do you need? Don't treat me like this, please. What do you need? And I said, Lowo, you have money? You have money. But you low, but you move. Wallo. We're just speaking to Yoruba, just speaking it. And I said, okay. I said, if it's that one, don't worry, I'll get. Yeah. So we got to one stream. It was very deep. He asked us to enter inside the water. My children, all of us, we went inside there, passed through there, climbing one hill like that. Then I said we should stop. And I sense that they started to look for firewood like that. I mean, in short, they prepared their food there that night. maybe whether they pay spaghetti or something like that, Sham. Because as at that time, they've asked us, myself, they asked me to kneel down. So one of them now came close to where I knelt down and asked me, bros, I mean, million uku? I said, where do you want me to get 3 million? Give me a slap. Another one came again and give me another one. Like that. The one with his gun hit me at my back. And I said, okay, no problem. We end that talk. After they take their food, they asked us to relax for like 30 minutes. We now embark on another journey. So another journey, that's maybe second lap. So I'm getting to another, it took us about 3 hours again, if I'm not mistaken. They asked us to stay in one bush, lie us down, that we should sleep. Of course, I enjoyed the sleep. Just maybe 30 minutes like that, inside bush, grass like that. My children too, some of them that carry maybe their night wrapper like that. They managed to cover me with their own, that they come, let's cover you. We did that. So after 30, 40 minutes, they asked us to stand up. We now begin the final lap. So the final lap, for us to get to the main camp, where their camp is, where their leader is, there's a big stream and one big mountain like that to climb. So they asked me to cross with 2 guys with their rifle following me. The guy that was holding my hand, the rope was still inside. He was controlling me with the rope. So I followed him. And I look back to check my children at the back. I say, Kai, 6 children. Where are they taking me to? I hope they are not going to kill me where they are taking me to. I just saw more courage and asked that guy, say, oh boy, Nibolanlo, where are you taking me to? He said, bros, Baba, don't worry now. I want to go and meet her. I said, I'm feeling cold. He now asked the guy to give me they pick one duvet for my house that night. So one of them used it to cover himself up. And I said, I'm feeling cold, I'm not okay, I'm not strong. That I'm not strong that night, I'm on medication. He now pleaded with one of his colleagues, said, we should bring that duvet for me to cover myself with. So I used that one. I was going. I didn't see my children coming. I was like, what is happening? And I said, what of my children? He said, Baba, they will come. They will come. What are you doing with my children? He said, Katabi. Just shouting on me. I said, I'm not comfortable. I want to go back. He said, no, you cannot go back. After 30 minutes, I sight my children coming up. So when I sat there, I was happy. And that's why they now assemble us again. So the guy that was telling you I tried to pick as friend was like to lecture me, bros. I'm a Bogawanisi. Just cooperate with Oga. But Oga will release you so you go and look for the ransom. I said, okay. I said, come, but I don't have money. I'm a civil servant. He said, Oga, leave that one. Go and look for the money. I said, I'm a civil servant. I just moved into that house not up to 2 months. My children, I had earlier explained to them that if they see the parlor there, nothing is there. There's just the room that we managed to enter. Not up to 2 months. We have been staying in a rental apartment for long. They asked me to go and sit down, relax, of which I did. After a few minutes, they called me. That the leader wants to see me. The leader seeing me was to ask me, Zona, I've seen their stick in their hand. I knelt down in front of the leader asking me all those questions about Negiraya. I said, Lapialo. He said, do I know where I've come to? I said, I know now. Okay, soldier ni? I said, I'm not a soldier. It was just to know where I said, I'm just an ordinary civil servant. The house you see me staying there is for my brother. He just asked me to come and occupy the place, and it's not yet completed. He said, okay. One came from my back again and use his boot to hit me. He now started to negotiate. He now asked me how much can I offer. I said, I don't have money, but I can look for maybe 2 million to come and give you, or maybe 3 million. That's how we started. They say I've not talked. I should count my children. I'm talking of 2 million, 3 million. I should be very careful. They now start, I was not saying 10 million, 5 million, 5 million. I said, where will I get the 5 million? My children, I say, Daddy, don't let them kill us. Don't let them kill us. You be very careful.
There we have an interview, an Arise interview with Mr. Mansour Al-Qadria, father of the 6 girls held in captivity by kidnappers, one of whom, the eldest, Nabeeha, was killed when he failed to make ransom as early as possible. A joint task force of the Nigerian Army rescued them over the weekend alongside others who were also in captivity by the kidnappers. Really good news there, Rufai. However, if it's bittersweet, as you would imagine, there were some losses, in the process. But please take...
So it's a very bittersweet, but there are many questions that have been left unanswered. And in fact, the conundrum continues. So there was a report that says, yes, the Joint Task Force rescued them in Kajuru Forest, but there's also other conflicting reports. And in fact, I have not been able to authenticate the verification of the Twitter handle that it was said that one of the kidnapped sisters said they paid ransom. All right, so we've not been able to authenticate it. So we're also hearing a lot of varying stories that it was the same kidnappers that called the family and said, okay, go pick them up at a certain area, and they saw the military and they told the military about it and they went there to pick them up. We've not been able to authenticate the story. Secondly, this SIS that is set up by the government, so what is now their plan as regards forestalling this case of kidnapping? Because over the weekend too, there were lots of skirmishes here and there. And insecurity is palpable in Abuja. The feeling of insecurity is palpable. Also is the fight between and the conundrum between the FCT minister and Ireti Kingibe, the senator, which have not touched base on things like this. And you see, somebody will wonder at a time of crisis like this, our political leaders should come together. So please, I would like to call on the FCT minister, call on the senator representing the FCT. You guys talk about these things. Let's find a way forward. That's as regards the political solution. Secondly, we've not been able to answer the question, was a ransom paid? If the family member claimed there was a ransom paid and the police is saying otherwise, that and the army, that it was a joint effort, was it a ransom paid? Secondly, have they been able to go after these people? I'm sure the police in all of their interrogation will have had the phone numbers of these kidnappers. Can they also, start their investigation, use the technology to link and all of that? I mean, there's a clear case of where the closest phone mast to where the person made the last call, there's a way you can get that trajectory and get that geomapping and use it to go after people. These are things that intelligence will go. So have we been able to apprehend these kidnappers? And have we been able to go one step further to apprehend the leader of this gang? Because there was a leader of the gang that was way in the bush that they crossed for 8 hours to. By now, has the police set up a reconnaissance of some sort that can walk 8 hours into that bush too and be able to map out that area? Because you see, what I see in this country is that we are largely very reactionary. But now we need to start preempting these terrorists, these kidnappers, these bandits. Ayo, like you said, my commiserations to the Nabeeha family, because even if they are celebrating the release, one person is down. Also, they are Jollof family. And have we gotten some resolution as regards also that matter? What about the other estates that were attacked recently? What are we also doing as reconnaissance to stem the tide of kidnapping, killings, and explosion? I mean, I also heard a very dastardly story out of Kaduna over the weekend as regards a child just picking up an explosive, not knowing it was an explosive, and throwing it. So we need to do a lot more work. This is a good sign, but a lot more needs to be done.
All right, good sign, but not more needs to be done.
I think it's very unfortunate that we have found ourselves in a situation in Nigeria whereby when 1 out of 6 gets killed by kidnappers and 5 persons are released, we say, oh, it's a sweet story. It is a confirmation of the extent of anomie in the land. Nobody should be kidnapped. Nobody in any part of the country should find themselves in a situation whereby kidnappers, bandits, terrorists have developed a thriving economy that is beyond the control or knowledge of the Nigerian state, even when the Nigerian state has knowledge of it. In terms of the criminality involved, it is unable to fulfill its obligation to ensure the security and the welfare of the people. And the narrative by the gentleman there, Mr. Al-Qadiriya, goes for that to confirm the position of The Economist magazine in an editorial dated January 18, titled "Kidnappers Wreak Havoc in Nigeria," and that the solutions being pursued by the Tinubu administration are similar to those pursued by the Buhari administration, with a suggestion, of course, that those methods will not work. And it will appear, in the view of the editorialists in The Economist, that the Nigerian government only seems to worry when the kidnapping gets close to the politicians, as has happened in the Al-Qadiriya family's case, whereby 6 members of the family were abducted in Buhari, which is a suburb of the Federal Capital Territory. And then we also had the case in Sagwaya Estate, where 10 persons were also abducted. There was also the case of an army estate in Abuja, where persons were abducted. Army estate, not a civilian barracks. So army estate, persons were abducted. And of course, The Economist editorial pointed out that on Christmas Eve, close to 200 persons were killed in the Middle Belt. In the southeastern part of the country, about a week ago, 45 persons were abducted. Abductions, kidnappings, terror continue unabated in the northwest and also in the northeast of the country. And the position of The Economist, which many will agree with, is that the Nigerian government is not addressing the key issues. Instead, the issue statements, instead, they are investing more on procurement of hardware, whereas the issues are elsewhere. Addressing the anger of the people, addressing education issues, addressing poverty issues, despite the fact that the provision for defense and security in the 2024 budget is about 12% higher than that of 2023. The Economist says no. With inflation at 29%, it makes no sense because nothing has improved. But even worse is corruption in terms of security spending, with the editorial commenting about security votes and all of that. In other words, the Nigerian government still has a lot to do in terms of making this environment safe. It's not only when there are security issues in Abuja and people just get killed. A member of the Al-Qadiriya family was killed. 2 persons were killed from that estate that I mentioned earlier on. And the kidnappers were demanding 700 million. The bitter part of it, the real part of it, is that these monies are processed, for the most part, through the banking system. And I've seen a report saying that, look, the banking system is part of the problem. Before now in this country, we were told when you align your national identification number with your SIM card, if you make a phone call through it, the calls can be traced. Now, is that working? The answer that many will tell you is that it's not working, particularly in terms of the impact of that particular initiative. So, the major problem remains, as President Tinubu himself had identified on May 29, when he assumed office, security of lives and property in this environment. And the solution, as many have also pointed out, including government officials themselves, is not just about buying hardware, buying Tuscano jets, buying drones. Those drones, in any case, that the Nigerian military officials don't even know how to manage well. You see that drones are attacking wrong targets due to failure of intelligence, or aircraft are dropping out of the skies, doing reconnaissance operations. We need to take security of lives and property more seriously, so that we don't continue to have the kind of jeremiad that we have listened to this morning from the Al-Qadiriya family, with whom we will commiserate, but with whom we regrettably say that they face this kind of challenge, others face this kind of challenge, because Nigeria continues to disappoint its people.
Well, watching that interview, it would provoke a number of emotions, and beyond that, also highlights a few things and also begs a number of questions. The first thing is that the report says that the Nigerian Army, a joint task force, rescued the girls. That word rescued has to be looked into a bit further, because when you rescue someone from something, it means that you were able to get them from the hands of people. In this case, it looks like they were recovered. No, maybe not, because if there was a rescue, then there would be, for you to rescue people in captivity, there must be an overpowering of those who held them in bondage. Now, if there was an overpowering of those who held them in bondage, then we should see evidence of the fact that there was some form of tussle in order to get the girls. So was it a midnight raid whilst the enemy was sleeping that they went to rescue the girls? And if that were, or the family, and then if that were the case, why did they leave the kidnappers alone? Because we haven't heard, if there was a rescue, anything about kidnappers being apprehended, especially those whom they rescued the victims from. So that's why you would understand why some questions are left unanswered if the military is laying claim to having rescued those girls. If they rescued them, then where are the vanquished? Who are the people that they rescued them from? Or where did they run away? Those are questions that need to be answered. And then when you look at here the account of Mr. Al-Qadria, and thank you so much for doing that, sir. As difficult as it must be, it's important to be able to tell the story, especially while it's still fresh. The truth is that the men who kidnapped he and his children didn't even have intelligence. They were not smart, because it wasn't as if they profiled their victims to assume that they would be able to afford the ransom they were asking for. Because if you hear what Mr. Al-Qadria said, when they were asking him for money, he said he'd just been living there for about 2 months or thereabouts. So if it was an intelligent operation, they would have profiled their victims and found people who could perhaps be able to pay ransom. So it means that this wasn't even intelligently done, yet they were able to outsmart our own agencies for a number of weeks until public outcry came. So this is another question as well, because when we talk about the fact that, they had intelligence, was a sophisticated operation, you can understand why it was difficult for the Nigerian security services or agencies to respond or to react, because perhaps their intelligence or their weapons were more sophisticated. It doesn't seem like that in this case. So is it that we are not even able to match up to a very basic, in quote, intelligence operations? So those are some of the questions we need to ask. And then it then speaks to upgrading our security agencies. So all the monies that are being budgeted for security, where do those monies go? What are we doing? Are we training our officers? Are we buying equipment or buying weapons to be able to match, that of the enemy, of kidnappers and bandits? So many questions. And then from what he said, you would hear the language in which they were speaking to him in. You would hear they spoke in 2 languages that he said. Those kind of questions also would be, because I heard over the weekend the questions around where they apprehended one kidnapper in Abuja, a notorious one, and he almost became an ethnic thing. But you would hear what they said. So there are a number of questions, and I believe that the agencies will ask. But finally, I would say this. The family members also need psychosocial support. During the Ibadan bomb blast, Governor Seyi Makinde had announced that beyond the rescuing and treatment of victims of the explosion, they offered psychological support, psychosocial support to the victims. These family members will need that, and I hope that for both the Al-Qadria family and the Ariyo family, who lost Michelle Ariyo, will also get that support from the government and protection as well. Move on to our next story. Former General Officer Commanding GOC 1 Division of the Nigerian Army, Major General Danjuma Ali Kefi, retired, has called on President Bola Tinubu to probe the air crash that killed former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru. Ali Kefi, who made the appeal in an interview with This Day, alleged that the crash was linked to terror sponsors. Ali Kefi said Attahiru devised the strategy to end terrorism in the north, part of which was infiltration of terror groups and the instigation of crisis among terror leaders, which culminated in the elimination of Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau by a rival terror group, Islamic State for West Africa Province, ISWAP. Part of the strategy was to also cut off the oxygen of terrorism, including funding and logistics, and to take down terror financiers, Ali Kefi stated. Atahiru and 11 senior military officers died in a plane crash in Kaduna when the aircraft was preparing to land at the Kaduna International Airport. The crash also killed the crew members. Ali Kefi, who had been billed to receive the late Army Chief as GOC 1 Division in Kaduna, pointed to the sudden change of time for Atahiru's trip to Kaduna, the change of aircraft, change of airport of landing from the military airstrip to the Kaduna International Airport, his landing in a turbulent, stormy weather, and the air-shattering explosion that occurred before the crash. All right, Rufai, your take on this story.
So, a couple of questions, and it goes back to the way we run Nigeria as a country. And you see, I talked about a domino effect last week. When something is destroyed, you just start to have all those cascading effects systematically. And that's why till today, the killers of Bolage have not been found. The reason for the air crash that happened in '92, where some officers were killed around Itoki, have not been known. Many other mysteries remain unsolved because of the way we run Nigeria. The question we should ask is, who were those that wanted Ibrahim Atahiru dead? And what happened afterwards? Did we put up a very proper forensic investigation into what happened? Have we been able to ascertain the cause? Because now we are getting Ali Kefi to be able to remind us, because what we also have in this country is selective amnesia. We're quick to forget events. And he has raised some concerns. If we're serious as a nation, shouldn't we look into these concerns? He talked about why the flight even went ahead when there was a talk about a heavy rain in the destination of the flight. And he thought the flight would even be cancelled outrightly. But the next thing that happened was that the flight had gone. And 15 minutes in, the flight was already airborne after the time had been changed initially. He talked about an explosion. Did we do a forensic audit, or we just went ahead to bury? Did we do an inquest into what happened? Secondly, we need to also ask questions. How well has our forces been infiltrated? Because it's not today we've been talking about infiltration. I remember very vividly, if my memory serves me right, that the foreign forces that came when the Chibok girls were first captured, because all the nations of the world wanted to help us. But all of a sudden, after a couple of weeks, those nations left. And on cross-examination, the story that filtered out was a large-scale level of infiltration. All the other countries were there. So when people say the world is not ready to help us as regards insecurity, it's not true. Because all the countries of the world, Israelis and everything, all their military was here to help us, the Chibok girls. So what level of infiltration has gone on? And how can we infiltrate the already infiltrated system? And that's why probably the outgone COS, Chief of Army Staff, even before Atahiru, Brutai, probably he was right when he said that the fight against insurgents might take another couple of years, about 20 years, he said, because of the level of what has gone wrong. Also, the case of political will to be able to stop it. So there are many questions that this interview with Ali Kefi has drawn up. But is Nigeria going to want to investigate? I very much doubt.
Well, the story about kidnapping was pathetic, as narrated by Mr. Al-Qadriya. This is even just as pathetic. And it also speaks to the various failures of the Nigerian state. Now, it was in May 2021 that the Chief of Army Staff, as he was then, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Atahiru, died along with 11 senior military officers on their way to Kaduna to attend the passing out parade of new military persons. And then, of course, that crash happened. Now, General Ali Kefi, who is now speaking up now, 3 years after the fact, was going to be the host, because at that time, it was GOC 1 Division in Kaduna, and he was waiting for the Chief of Army Staff and the 11 other senior military officers when the news came that there had been an explosion and that the Chief of Army Staff and the officers had died. Indeed, the Nigerian government at that time said it was launching an investigation into the incident. The investigation was launched, but till today, no report has been published. Another of those unresolved mysteries in Nigeria, another of those unresolved murders in Nigeria. In some other jurisdictions, they talk about cold cases, which can be reopened at other times. They talked about closed cases, which will have been resolved. But here in Nigeria, when cases go cold, by design or by default, they remain cold forever. And that's part of the problem here, that we have a state machinery that lacks the capacity for investigation to see through cases, either involving murders or involving conspiracy, and closing those cases. This is one of those unresolved matters. The key question that we'll raise: one, why was the investigation into the death of Lieutenant General Ibrahim Atahiru and 11 others never published? What became of that investigation? Two, why is Major General Ali Kefi, former GOC1 div, now speaking up 3 years after the fact? If he knew what is now disclosing now 3 years ago, why is he just speaking up now? Because he was still GOC1 div at the time the investigation was being carried out. Why did he not raise the questions about changing flight plans, changing movement, and other programs used to delay the Chief of Army Staff? Three, he's talking about terror financiers. Who are those terror financiers? If he's building a conspiracy theory, he must have information about the identity of those persons. So he's not telling us enough about what he knows, if indeed he knows what he's talking about. And that is why I think that the assignment that he has now given President Tinubu, that he did not have the confidence to give President Buhari at the time, he too should be invited to tell the security agencies what he knows and why he has chosen this particular time to speak up. And the military establishment also has a responsibility, those who are in the saddle now, not to allow former Chief of Army Staff and 11 others to die in vain. If there is anybody who is now blowing the whistle, he should be invited to come and tell us what he knows. Whether a person is a civilian or a military officer, no matter the status, nobody should die needlessly in a country that continues to demonstrate that it lacks the capacity to protect everyone, whether uniformed or, what do they call us? They call us bloody civilians. They say we are bloody civilians, where all of us have a right under the Constitution to be protected because we have the right to the dignity of life. So these are the issues here. General Ali Kefi still has a lot more to tell, maybe not just the general public, but also the security agencies. But will President Tinubu take up the challenge of following up on, finding out exactly what happened when a whole Chief of Army Staff died in a plane crash along with 11 others? And there have been similar crashes involving the military. Well, there may be code files. Those code files should be reopened now that we have a person like Ali Kefi willing to sing and talk and give information.
Absolutely. Whole Chief of Army Staff, which is also what Major General Ali Kefi, retired, had mentioned in his interview. He had actually said that he headed an investigative panel set up by the former president to look into terrorism financing and also perhaps this crash. And when he brought out revelations, he was victimized, even as being a part of the military. He said he was arrested and was made to undergo compulsory retirement. So he inferred that the previous administration didn't quite handle the investigation of that unfortunate aircraft, which took place, well, it will be 3 years in May of 21st of May of this year. And he said that it wasn't well handled. And hopefully, this new administration, headed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will take up the challenge to properly investigate. It is an embarrassment to the nation when a top officer like the Chief of Army Staff would be involved in a suspicious, as he termed, plane crash. And we don't seem to have any investigation, at least whether to clear that it was truly due to weather conditions or what he claimed based on some of the evidences or things that occurred, one of which is quite significant, which he detailed, was the fact that the bodies that were recovered from that crash were flung far from the epicenter of where the crash happened. That if it was indeed a crash and not an explosion, as he was inferring, that happened mid-air, which then caused the crash, and the bodies ought to have been around the area and not flung far, not just the body of the Chief of Army Staff, but others who were on the plane. Pertinent questions, investigations, these are things that are observed and should be taken further in the area of investigation to put to sleep or to put to bed any kind of conspiracy theory or allegations. I think for the sake of posterity, this administration should take on the responsibility of a full independent investigation into what happened on the 21st of May, 2021, so that we can lay to rest this. And if indeed, and the claims made by Major General Ali Kefi with regards to terrorism financing, he's made big claims and is willing to stake his reputation and even life, if it were the case, to make these claims. So I think it shouldn't be taken with kids' gloves, and there should be a thorough investigation into this matter. We'll await to hear what the president says, or this administration, if they will take up this particular task.